With the June window wrapping up for the US men's national team, I figured I would get my prediction/desired roster for the World Cup. A lot can still change, players can find form in the fall, new controversies can arise, and the unfortunate reality of injuries can occur. But at this moment in time, this is the roster I expect to see, with one or two players that I've included for my own wants. Starting with the three goalkeepers, we have Matt Turner, Zach Steffen, and Ethan Horvath. As of right now, none of these three are first choice at their clubs. Turner just moved to Arsenal and will have Aaron Ramsdale ahead of him. The analytics and performances point to him being the top goalkeeper at the moment, but his club situation is unclear with his move to Arsenal. Zach Steffen is now most likely third choice at Man City and desperately needs a move to secure some playing time. His performances with the national team have been shaky, but he's clearly a favorite of Berhalter's. Finally, the third goalkeeper was a bit of a toss-up for me. This could go any way between Horvath, Sean Johnson, or Gaga Slonina, but I went with Horvath. Horvath will likely be second choice at Nottingham Forest again this season. Even with his limited playing time at his club, he has shown some good performances for the national team, but he also has had some bad performances. I hope this last goalkeeper doesn't have to play, so I don't think it matters too much who it is, and it seems like Horvath is a locker room favorite. My four center backs are Walker Zimmerman, Chris Richards, Aaron Long, and Cameron Carter-Vickers. Miles Robinson's injury really is a bummer here because I think it really hurts the depth of this position. Walker Zimmerman is a clear lock at one of the center back positions. He's taken his opportunities for the national team very well this year. Who pairs with him is the big question though. I think mine and everyone else's hope is that Chris Richards returns from injury and finds himself in a favorable spot for playing time with whatever club he ends up at. We need a quicker player to cover up for Zimmerman's weaknesses, and Richards would be a perfect option to pair with him. Richards has interest for loans from clubs in England, Spain, and Germany. Wherever he ends up, he should be consistently playing. Aaron Long recently returned from an Achilles injury that I thought would be national team career ending, but with a lack of quality depth, Long has found himself back in the squad. His defending was good in the June window, but I do still have some questions about his passing abilities. The final center back on my roster is Cameron Carter-Vickers. He had his best season for club last season with Celtic and earned himself a permanent transfer. I like CCV's defending ability and physicality, but similar to Long, I am a little bit skeptical of his passing, but we did see some improvements in this area this past season and in the June games. The four fullbacks are Serginho Dest, Anthony Robinson, DeAndre Yedlin, and Shaq Moore. Dest and Anthony are pretty locked into the right and left back positions respectively, and I do not expect anything to change there, so I will not touch on them too much. I'm still not completely convinced by Yedlin, but he does have World Cup experience and seems to be a key veteran within the group. His performance for the national team in recent games have been passable as well. For the final fullback, I'm taking Shaq Moore. The reason for this is his crossing ability. He might be the best crosser of the ball in the pool. If we need a goal desperately and we have to resort to lumping the ball in the box, Shaq is probably our best bet here. He turned in a good performance against Panama in an emergency call-up, and he finished the season strong with Tenerife. I would love to replace one of the backup right backs with one of the younger fullbacks like Joe Scally, George Bello, Kevin Paredes, Justin Che, or Jonathan Gomez. I just do not think that any of them are quite at the spot yet to make a positive contribution to the World Cup. Scally is clearly the closest and can very easily make the roster. Paredes, Che, and Gomez need to start getting minutes with their club before making a real push towards a spot. Bello needs to have a better season than last and show some clear improvement. I do think that there's a path here for one of them to make the roster, but I think it's more likely than not that none of them end up on the final roster. I'm taking 8 midfielders, but many of them can play in multiple positions. Tyler Adams is one of the 3 sixes that I'm bringing. His ability to put out fires for the team is as important as ever. I still wish that his attacking ability would improve, but at this point we'll probably have to rely on his other 2 midfield partners to pick up the slack in this department. His club situation is murky. He still has not really earned a starting spot at Leipzig in 2.5 years, and now he has some increased competition ahead of him. The next 6 is Kellen Acosta. Acosta has been reliable for the national team when needed, and he will be a suitable backup option to Tyler Adams. Lastly, James Sand is my last 6. He was brought on due to his positional versatility. He can play the 6 and provide cover at center back if needed. I'm hoping for a bigger role for him at Rangers this season to truly cement his spot in the squad. Yunus Musa is one of my favorite players on this team. He committed to the US men's national team about a year ago, and he's quickly made himself a mainstay on the roster. He has impressive ball progression and press resistance abilities. We have not seen the same type of performance for this club as we do with the national team, so I would love to see more of that in the fall. Luca De La Torre is kind of a similar player to Yunus Musa, excellent ball progression and press resistance, and a shaky final ball. He is a great depth piece to the midfield and has shown this with some huge performances in World Cup qualifying and Nations League. He's going to move away from his relegated club this summer, but the question is, to where will he go? Weston McKennie recently returned from a foot injury. His performances in June looked a little rusty for good reason. But when he is healthy and back in form, he's one of our best players, as shown by his work in qualification this past year. I expect another good season at Juventus, and for him to be a key player at the World Cup. I have Gio Reyna in the midfield, but the truth is that he can play on the wing as well. Reyna's season was hampered by hamstring injuries. When healthy, he is one of, if not the most dynamic player on the US men's national team. Staying healthy is the key for Reyna, because if he's healthy and in form, he will be in for a huge World Cup. Lastly, Tim Tillman is my player that I hope gets a chance. For the record, I probably do not expect him to make the final roster, but I love his game. He's an athletic midfielder who is good on the ball and has that killer final ball in his locker that we sometimes sorely lack. I wish he got a chance in June to determine if he truly has what it takes to make the team. But he was a solid midfielder for one of the worst teams in the Bundesliga last season. I would like to see him move clubs to another Bundesliga team this summer, but I truly think that he does have something to offer to this team. The four wingers are Christian Pulisic, Tim Weah, Brendan Aronson, and Paul Arriola, with Gio Reyna able to fit in here if needed as well. Pulisic has turned up his performances with the national team lately, and we will need to see more of that in November. His club situation is also murky, with rumors of a potential Chelsea split coming. Tim Weah was one of our most important attacking options during World Cup qualifying. His directness was constantly a threat for opposing defenses. He struggled with Lille at times this season, but he ended the season off on a tear. Brendan Aronson is similar to Gio in that he can play on the wing or in the midfield in a pinch. His pressing and energy will be a valuable asset in certain game situations. He just earned himself a big money move from Salzburg to Leeds United. I'm excited to see how he fares in the Premier League. I think Paul Arriola will be one of the players brought along for good leadership and team chemistry. Similar to Aronson, I love his energy and pressing, but he has had his fair share of poor performances for the national team. We have seen some solid performances, but they are far too inconsistently mixed in with the bad ones. He has been one of the best players in MLS for FC Dallas this season, so my hope is that he can find that consistent run of the form with the USMNT as well. And now to the most polarizing position of all, the strikers. The three strikers I am bringing are Ricardo Pepi, Jesus Ferreira, and Jordan Pefok. Pepi had a flash-in-the-pan type performance for the national team late last year, scoring goals in a short time and then slowly fading. It has now been almost 9 months since he last scored a goal. He moved to Augsburg and struggled in his first few months there, but he is so young and has proven that he can contribute when called upon. He will need to find some semblance of quality form in the next few months, but I am confident that he will be able to find it. Jesus Ferreira is a striker that fits in well in Berhalter's system. Typically, the USMNT is more dangerous when he's on the field because of his off-ball movement and passing. His finishing has been a concern in recent games, but he continuously finds himself in these dangerous situations, and I believe the finishing will even out over time. Lastly, I've gone with Jordan Pefok. I think there are issues with almost all of the strikers, and when we got to the third striker, the issues were at the point where I just picked the striker who scores the most. Pefok will offer little to nothing in the build-up, but he is good in the air and he gets into good finishing positions. I know a lot of people are wary of him because of his miss against Mexico, but I do think that we need to be more forgiving of that because of his performance with his club. He recently won the Golden Boot in the Swiss League. Winning the Golden Boot is very rare for an American in any European league. He can clearly score goals, and in a game that we desperately need a goal, I wouldn't mind seeing him. So this is my 26-man roster. I fully expect there to be people who disagree. The disagreement is the fun part of making these though. Everyone sees the team differently and has different opinions. Please comment down below and we can discuss our thoughts together.